Hello and welcome to the Checkpoint podcast. My name is Josh Boyles. I am your host for this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whenever you're listening to this podcast. I am a broadcast journalism student at the University of Salford, and I'm joined again by my co-host Owen Connolly. How are you today, my dude?
I'm really good. I'm Owen Connolly. I'm a digital art student from Newcastle upon Tyne, and we're just here to shoot the shit on
talk about video games.
Yeah.
Weekly news digest. We've got hot topics. We're going to talk about the games that we played. What a week, man. I'm shattered. I mean, we record this on a Friday and then publish it on a Sunday, and this week has been the week where I start uni lectures again. So I had a full news day on Thursday, which was like full radio bulletins, 4 of them, and then today I've had 6 hours of lectures about government and war, so I'm pretty shattered at this point. Plus, I've been doing my marathon training this week. I mentioned at the end of last podcast that I running the Manchester Marathon in April. Do you want to hear a funny anecdote about my nearly breaking my toe this week, Owen? Or do you just want to talk about video games? Should I just leave
I think we have time for that.
We've got to. Yeah. Okay. Right, I was so I started my marathon training on Monday as properly. I run like 3 times a week, something like that. Not very far, like 4 or 5 miles. But I started the proper marathon training, like running 10 plus miles. Around 10.5 miles on Monday, and I got to about mile 8. Coming back on this really it's a really narrow path, and the road runs next to it. This woman was walking in front of me. She was walking so slow, and I had to overtake her. And I had the Mission Impossible theme tune was on in my ears. It's the long track from Mission Impossible Fallout where they do like the exchange in Paris, and it was just getting up to the epic part of that, and I was like, right, I am Tom Cruise. I was channeling Tom Cruise.
That's the running meme, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
If you're running, you just inhabit just characters at times, and it's actually genuinely useful. No matter how lame it sounds, it's actually very good.
My favourite thing at the minute is because Media City in Salford is where like the BBC and things are. There's a bridge across there, and I usually I have like a short 30-second rest, just like about 200 meters down from that bridge, I stick the shorter Mission Impossible theme tune on, and my challenge is that I've timed it. I've timed it perfectly now. If I set that going at a certain time, then it gets to the last da-da, that bit as I'm just about to get to the end of this bridge, and in my head I pretend that it's about to blow up and that I have to get across. It worked. It's great. Anyway, I had Mission Impossible on. There was a short wall to the right of this woman on the path. And I was like, right, I'm going to hop on this wall, run along the wall, then hop back off on the path. It's going to be epic. So I jumped on the wall with my left foot. That went up fine, and then I brought my right foot up, and I think I was either running too fast or I just wasn't taking enough care, and I stubbed my toe running at like full pelt. And then I fell over, did like a commando roll through someone's front garden, and the woman didn't see me fall, but she was then very, very confused as to why I was running through someone's front garden, and then hopped back up. But yeah, I didn't think anything of it.
I'm getting flashbacks to the old Hot Fuzz. Why we'd have jumped over a fence before. It's that.
It was pretty much like that. It's like the epic music builds up, and then I just absolutely tumbled, and I didn't think anything of it until I got to the gym afterwards, and I was like, I feel like I've got cramp in my toe. I was like, is that normal for long distance runs? I just thought it was, and then the next few days I was like, nah. I tried going a run for the day after. I got a mile in. And I was like, I think I've genuinely broken something. So I'm going to go for a couple miles on the treadmill later on tonight and see if it's sorted itself. I hope it has, because
I feel like it's super normal to feel knackered, especially in the first month of the year. January really is the Monday morning of the year, isn't it?
It is.
And then after that, it just gets better.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter just talking about how like January seems to have gone on for ages for them. But I mean, I only just started lectures this week, which is the end of January. And I mean, apart from the week that I spent in London working in my job down there, I mean, January's gone pretty quickly for me. I've not really done much. All right, so the first story up this week is the Wii Shop channel is sadly no more. The Wii Shop channel is no longer supported on the Wii. It can't be accessed. You can't purchase anything on it. Everyone remembers the classic theme tune that has now been remixed into multiple memes. It's an absolute banger. I wish the original was on Spotify, but it unfortunately isn't. The Wii Shop is going to be remembered, I think, for it was one of the first like storefronts to have a stab at a virtual console. It enabled Nintendo Entertainment, the NES games and the SNES games to be played on the Wii, where the quality of those games was questionable, but it was one of the first sort of stabs that Nintendo had at doing like a backwards compatibility sort of thing. Since then, Nintendo has actually sold 13.4 million NES and SNES mini classic units, those like separate units that they sell that like just come with preloaded emulated games, which funnily enough is actually they sold 13.4 million of those since they came out. The Wii U lifetime sales was 13.5 million, so they're only 100,000 off the lifetime Wii U sales.
It's so sad.
I just thought I'd include that for a laughing comparison. The Wii Shop. It's a sad story because, of course, the Wii Shop channel was so beloved, but it does bring up the argument of video game preservation, because there's going to be some games on there, on the Wii Shop channel, that can no longer be purchased anywhere else. This is where ROM sites, emulation, and piracy arguments come to light, with some arguing that piracy is totally acceptable if it means preserving parts of video game history. This is especially relevant as so much of the game's media is going digital these days. I think I've seen reports of that. I think most of the stuff that was on the Wii Shop channel is being like ripped and made available online somewhere if you know where to look. But again, it's piracy. It is illegal. Which brings up like the question: surely that you'd think that with games going more digital, you'd think that moving to a digital age would surely help preserve video game heritage. Owen, have you got any thoughts on this?
It is it's a very difficult topic, mainly because I think the only way to really deal with it comes down to a moral issue. When it comes to not being able to play a game anymore legitimately, the only way to really get around that problem is the only way to truly, honestly deal with that problem is to say, have I bought the license to this product at any point in my life? And as such, will that allow me to emulate it? So if I've owned games on PS2 in the past that I've bought, like in Granger Games in like 2006, like I've played it before.
Sorry, that's another one that's great. So the Wii Shop's closed down. Granger Games closed down at the start of last year.
Yeah, it's all going. It's unfortunate, but
it's weird as well because like other industries don't particularly have this. I feel anyway. I mean, like you think about the music industry, everything's like physical. You got vinyls, you got CDs, you got whatever. Yeah. And I mean, the music, like the piracy in the music industry was what sort of shaped the way that the music industry is now. I feel as well because I think that's how like services like Spotify and Apple Music and all that came around, because it's one of those things where if things used to be more favorable to pirate something because pirating something was easier than it was to get your hands on the actual product. Like it used to be easier. If you wanted to watch a TV show, it used to be easy to just go on the internet and find a link for it instead of, going out to the shops and buying it. Whereas now you just subscribe to Netflix and paying £8 a month is much if you get like a simplified UI, that's much more fair. I'd say I buy movies on Google Play all the time just because like I've got a digital license to them. It's much easier than just going out and finding a virus-ridden website.
I was going to say, plus you're removing the threat of viruses and so on.
Exactly, but for video games, we don't really have that yet. I feel anyway, especially for like the older games where the systems that you can play them on aren't really available. I mean, this is kind of different for things like the NES and the SNES, where the games were physical back then. I feel like the Nintendo Wii was the start of the console digital age, where you could actually just buy stuff digitally and then you would never have a physical copy. which yeah, I mean it's difficult for. I think we're definitely in like the infancy of that sort of age, and I think over the next few years we might start to see Nintendo like because they already do have like a backlog, not a backlog, what's the word, like a backwards compatibility emulator thing on. If you pay for the Nintendo Switch Online, you can play some NES and SNES games on there. So I think well, hopefully we'll start to see some sort of advancement from Nintendo there about making sure that older games are still salvaged from, like, because obviously we can't buy the one at the Wii shop anymore. Xbox has been another one that has absolutely been incredible with the backwards compatibility stuff, although you can still obviously get the physical copies of most of those games, so it's a little bit less it relates less to the story a little bit, I feel. But yeah,
I think there'll be a lot of options that come down to it, especially after the closing of the Wii store. A lot of people saying I can't access this particular game anymore without piracy. I think for an official company to fix this problem, you're going to have to wait. There'll probably be some sort of system that Nintendo or whatever the company of the time is will introduce some sort of system where they will support as many backwards compatibility games as possible if there is as much demand for them, if there is a large demand for them. However, I'd say in the meantime, emulation is a sort of morally grey topic, but I would say if there are games that you've been wanting to play and you don't have the and you just aren't able to play them again, if that would involve buying a new console and getting a copy of that game off of like eBay or whatever for like 70 quid, because that's how much these can go for. Like the classic versions of games are just ridiculously expensive when they're resold. I'd say the best thing to do is kind of what I mentioned earlier, which is if you've bought that game at any point, I would say you're allowed to emulate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, say, I know, I can see where you're coming from, and again, this is a very morally grey area that, I mean, we don't really have much, experience in, really, because again, this is sort of in its infant. I mean, video games is like it's a 50-60-year-old industry at this point. But I feel like moving into the digital age, this is definitely still something that's very much in its infancy. So I think the only thing we could, as you said, I think there is a demand for it. That's the thing. I think as soon as Nintendo or whoever wake up to the fact that there are so many people readily available to hand over some money if it means that they can play some of the games that older games that they can't access anymore. For like a subscription service or something, or even for just like a cheap fee or something, or just I think Nintendo need to offer a way for those older games
it's not
to
just
be
Nintendo
made available. Exactly, yeah.
It's everyone.
It's like, yeah, I mean, there's probably games on the. I mean, is the PSP store? Did they have like an online store or anything? I never owned a PSP.
It must have done.
I would imagine so.
Maybe the first one didn't. There were a lot of different incarnations of the PSP. I never actually owned one. I think in the Christmas fight between the PSPs and the DSs, the PSPs got absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, I can imagine. I only know of one person that owned one.
Same. It's probably the same. It's
probably the same person. Yeah. I remember them coming around to your house and then your mum getting annoyed because they were playing GTA like 4 or San Andreas on it, and your mum was not happy with violent games back then.
No, definitely not. But
no.
Yeah, it's
a rough one.
Being able to, there's a lot of times I feel like, because where gaming is at the minute, it kind of lost identity for a while, and then people were really, really begging for a new, like, just looking backwards. There was just, I forget what year I feel like this happened, but I feel like there was a particular year where pretty much every studio, every company was like, let's look back on what made us great.
I feel like around 2013, that's when all the remasters started to the remastered and all the remakes started to resurface, and I think a lot of them are starting to come, like the quality ones at least, like especially the remakes. What's the Resident Evil 2 last week? See, that's like a full-on remake that is like tapping into people's nostalgia. What other remakes have we had? We had like the Crash Bandicoot remake. Well, I don't know if that's a remaster or a remake.
Remake.
Like the difference between we'll say the difference between a remake is that it's been built from the ground. Well, maybe not the ground up, but it's been like overhauled so much that it's like basically a brand new game.
I think the official definition is that a remake doesn't use any of the original code.
Right. Okay. Well, you can definitely see that with Resident Evil 2 because it's.
You can see it with Crash Bandicoot as well because it controls.
Yeah, Crash
better.
Bandicoot. Yeah. Spyro as well. That came out recently.
Yeah. So
Shadow of the Colossus.
I think.
That's getting away from the topic a little bit though, because those are games that were still readily available. You could buy a physical copy if you wanted to. But yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the obscure games that like the really niche ones that were on the Wii store that you genuinely can't access them now unless you go online. So it's a morally grey area, but I think that we might start to see over the next few years video game preservation start to, I don't know, come to the forefront a little bit more. It's something that's very niche at the minute. I know of a few. I think there's like a retro. Forgive me, but I can't remember the name of the exact podcast. I'll try and find the link for it and stick it in the notes. But there's a podcast recently that did a really, really good podcast on the whole topic of video game preservation. So I think it's something that's definitely going to be come to light in the next few years.
It's genuinely a very interesting thing to. I know that there'll be specific games that I played in my childhood that you'll have never have heard of, and a vast majority of people will never have heard of, but ones that I want not only to replay but to show people because they might do something that I genuinely don't remember ever being done again.
Yeah, exactly.
But
there's so much niche stuff out there that is just like lost to.
It's the same in everything. Music is easily the worst for it. I think because I think music, by its very, just by how it works, is that it's basically mathematically certain that whatever your favorite band is, no matter how diehard you are for them, there will be another band out there that you've never heard of and probably will never hear of, who are maybe 10 times better. And you'll never have heard of them.
That's an interesting topic. I think I remember Danny O'Dwyer did an episode of The Point. I think it was Fallout themed. I just think I remember that being a factor. I think it was titled like "What if you never play your favorite game," which I think is getting a little bit away from the subject topic. But yeah, I'll try and link that down below as well. Yeah, I think that's all there is to say on the Wii Shop channel, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's hardly it's not really a topic you can talk a lot about. It just raises so many questions.
I think you can talk a lot about it. It's just that I know I certainly am not in a position to. I haven't done enough research to be able to say like definitively this is how games should be preserved. This is like and define that morally grey area that we were talking about. So. Anyway, in other news, Sea of Thieves is now an opt-in cross-platform play game, or it will be by the end of the next update. Cross-platform play used to be mandatory between Xbox and PC. You didn't have a choice. PC players and Xbox players were just lumped into the same servers. Due to community feedback in the latest Sea of Thieves developer update video, they have now announced that it's going to be an opt-in feature. So by default, when you first start up the game, you'll be playing with either Xbox players if you're on Xbox, or PC Windows 10 players if you're on PC or Windows 10. You can still play with Xbox players, but you will have to go and tick a box in a menu somewhere and make that. It's an optional thing. And to be honest, I don't really see this as much of an issue, to be honest. If Xbox players want to play with just Xbox players, I think they're in their right to do so. I mean, Sea of Thieves is a pretty... I was going to say the dreaded casual word there, but I mean...
it is.
I can see... It is, but I mean, I can see the frustration of not being able to, you obviously don't have the same dexterity on a controller, and people, coming in with mice and keyboards and like one-shotting you with snipers is,
Well,
I can see that being frustrating.
I think it comes down to I, what we can only refer to as the summit effect,
Yeah.
where the Sea of Thieves randomly just has received this massive boost in popularity thanks to particular streamers. This is
I think
this is something that's really good. It doesn't matter what your opinion on the game is. It shows the power of influence, and
I think that influence is obviously a key factor with Summit going back and playing it, but I think it would be also ignorant to ignore the fact that there is actually a lot of work that's gone into Sea of Thieves
of
over
course,
the last year in terms of its live service. I mean, it's gained new cosmetic updates. It's had new gameplay changes. They've had added like a new ship. There's a new arena mode coming in the next couple of months. So I mean, I don't want to say that it is solely the fault of Summit for bringing people back to this game. And it's got a great. I think it's safe to say it's had a pretty consistent community as well. I mean, we watch Two Angry Gamers TV quite a lot on Twitch, and I don't want to say that they play it a lot, but every now and again, I think they go back and give it a good bash, don't they?
they do play it a significant amount. I think that a lot of the hate from Sea of Thieves came from a particular kind of player who didn't get the game that they expected, and the community that stayed loved the game for what it was. I think a lot of players came back because they saw it was becoming popular again, and that allowed them to see what Rare had done. So it's not
maybe fall back in love with it.
Exactly. So it's not Summit and other streamers. I feel like aren't the reason the game is popular again. They've just reintroduced the game to people, and people have realized that a lot of new stuff is in there, and they've refound their love for the game. When the game first came out, as much as it's sort of a meme that it doesn't really have much content, or the kind of the gameplay loop of the game is very repetitive and it can get boring. When that game came out, it's all I wanted to play for a while. And it's really strange how, even though I knew all of those things, I just wanted to play the game because the core gameplay is so fun, and just being able to mess around in that game is so fun.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because when Sea of Thieves came out, I was back home away from my computer and just playing on my laptop, and I think it's one of those games that you can just sit back and play with mates. It feels like it's an emergence of like a genre that I kind of want to call social games, where you don't really play it for the gameplay. And I mean, this differs from person to person. Like for me at the minute, my social game is absolutely Fortnite. I don't particularly, I mean, I enjoy the building, I enjoy the general gameplay, but the main reason that I play Fortnite is because it's what my other mates play, and it's a chance to just sort of, I don't really think about what I'm doing half the time. I keep like one weather eye on the horizon, but it's like you just sit and play, and then you chat with your mates. And I feel like that was what Sea of Thieves was for us back in March. We just get a crew of 4 people together and go piss about a bit, and just have a natter.
Yeah. And it was, even though there wasn't really much to do, the feeling of doing a quest and getting money and
watching numbers tick up.
Yeah, exactly. Watching numbers tick up. If you can enjoy that, there's a lot of video games that you're just going to enjoy. However, I feel like Sea of Thieves has slightly migrated in terms of its player base. I'm not sure about the developers, but it's migrated in the kind of game that it is. In that I feel like Rare wanted to create a game where it's just about freedom of expression, sort of going on adventures, meeting other players, and sort of creating your own fun. But I feel as if, and it might be due to streamers, and it might just be due to what the majority of video game players alike, I feel like it's morphed from that into just theft and just like pure, more of a competitive game. Not obviously not a very like a very competitive game. It's still, you know, on the casual side of the spectrum, but it's less going out and sort of just having fun with your friends now as it is, right, let's hunt people down, let's find their treasure, let's get as much money as possible.
I think that's one way of looking at it. I mean, I admittedly haven't watched a lot of Sea of Thieves recently. I haven't played. I think I still have it installed, but I haven't played a lot recently. So I mean, I guess that is, you say that it's morphed into just that. I think it'd be hard to say without looking at everyone's gameplay. But I think that is definitely one of the way. I think that's one of the ways you can play it, and I think that Rare intend for that to not be a bad thing. As you say, freedom of expression, and like you play the game how you want to play it. Playing it as a pirate is absolutely on the table, I think. But yeah, I mean, having the cross-platform play was a huge deal as well, because it was one of the first Xbox Play Anywhere titles, especially and it was the first one that you could get with Game Pass, which I know is why a lot of people came into it. And we'll talk. I think. I don't think we're talking more of this episode about subscription services and stuff like that, but it is the start of Microsoft's, sort of big plan for next gen, which we talked a little bit about last week. So yeah, the fact that it's now opt-in cross-platform play is it's a minor change, but it's probably welcome for those that play it, I think.
Yeah, of course. Right. Yeah. So, however, due to it being cross-platform opt-in, will that also mean that future Play Anywhere titles are also going to be opt-in?
I think it depends on the developer. I mean, this is a choice that's been made by the developer. I think if other development teams are sensible and looking at taking feedback and doing a bit of research, it makes sense to put the opt-in feature. But I think it depends on the game. I mean, if you look at something like Crackdown, I can see PC players with a higher frame rate having an advantage. I think it's just a nice option for people to have. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect people that much.
Yeah.
If you're genuinely bothered about it being cross-platform player, the option is there. You just go turn it on. Yeah, I don't think it's too much of a huge deal. All right, next up is a small story about the Nintendo Switch. Well, the first one's a small one. The second part is a little bit bigger. So Assassin's Creed 3 and Liberation might be coming to the Nintendo Switch in a bundle. This was listed, there's several listings on multiple Czech eShops showing Assassin's Creed 3 and Liberation bundle, supposedly releasing on the Nintendo Switch on the 15th of February 2019. As much as I would like this to be true, and I think it could be, because the last Assassin's Creed game to release on a Nintendo system was Assassin's Creed 3 on the Nintendo Wii U, I think the release date is a little ambitious. I mean, 15th of February is in 2 weeks from the day that we're recording this, and we've had no advertisement from Ubisoft or anything. So I think that's a little ambitious. However, I would love to see it come to Switch. I mean, Assassin's Creed 3 it's not one of the most well-received Assassin's Creeds in the franchise, but I mean, for what it was worth, it did do a few things to change the formula. It changed up the setting. It added like tree parkour. The story was all right. The main character was a little bit, boring. That's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah. And Liberation is the one that I haven't played. It was the one that released, I don't want to say, it was either the Vita or the PSP. And then they brought it to consoles later on, like a few years later. So that is the one that I haven't played, Liberation. So I would love to see it come to Switch, because I feel like that'd be... It was definitely like the first. It first made an appearance on like a portable handheld console, and I'm pretty sure it was the PSP or the Vita. It was one of the two.
Vita.
So I think Vita makes sense. Yeah. So having it on the Switch would be cracking. The other game that is also is definitely coming to Switch. That was just a rumor. This is definitely coming to Switch. Is Darksiders War Mastered Edition is coming to the Nintendo Switch on April 2nd. This was actually THQ Nordic released the trailer on YouTube accidentally before later confirming it officially.
I don't.
to be coming to the Switch on the April 2nd.
Who's releasing a trailer? Who's rendering a video, encoding it, and then setting it to upload to YouTube accidentally?
Now, I think what's been done is that because when you upload to YouTube, you can upload it in different like different privacy levels. So there's public, there's private, there's scheduled, and there's unlisted. Okay. And if you choose the wrong one and accidentally hit public, like as soon as you hit publish and that setting is on public, you have to immediately like run to try and take it down. Which when there's people like journalists with YouTube notifications on for THQ Nordic, that's a bit difficult. I know for a fact because I was supposed to release this podcast at 10 a.m. last week and released it at 1 a.m. in the morning because I forgot I did exactly the same thing as what THQ Nordic did.
Yeah.
So it's an easy mistake to make. But yeah, it's great to see some more AAA games coming to Switch. I mean, the Switch is turning into the platform for the many. I feel like I'm talking about Brexit. But yeah, it's like, I mean, personally for me, my Nintendo Switch it's my place for all Nintendo exclusives, and it's my place for all indie titles. I don't know about you.
Oh, I'm exactly the same. Any game that doesn't require me to be hunched over a mouse and keyboard, or any game that isn't competitive, like a fighting game or something like Rocket League, that's what I will play on my Switch because it gives me an extra screen. I can have something else on my other screens. It's especially good for like indie game, like roguelikes and just games that are just pick up and put down. So
Dead Cells is fantastic on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I probably won't pick up Darksiders War Mastered. I mean, I already have that on PC. I got it for free with Twitch and also the Discord store, I think. But I would think I would genuinely be interested in picking up Assassin's Creed 3 and Liberation. I mean, I imagine they perform fairly admirably if they were able to run on PS Vita. So yeah, looking forward to that if that Assassin's Creed one is true. And the other Nintendo Switch story is that, well, we talked... I'm getting things mixed up. I can't remember if we talked about the Switch hardware. I think we did last week. Yeah. So these reports more reports are now coming out from Nikkei, I think that is how you pronounce it. So this person writing for a Japanese publication reports that Nintendo is looking to release the new unit as early as 2019. This is a cheaper, smaller Switch, which is apparently supposed to release as early as the end of this year. So this is going to be smaller, cheaper, probably focus on portability, but it is also going to sacrifice a few features. Now, I think I've been thinking a little bit about this. I think the features that make most sense, because I was thinking, if it's going to be smaller, how's that going to fit with the interchangeable hardware that we have with the Switch now, like the Joy-Cons for a start. So I think one of the sacrificial features is going to be removable Joy-Cons. So just have it, it's like maybe like a 2DS with one screen, like just a flat slab. I thought maybe it might not have a dock if they're going to focus on portability. Although if you've got a Nintendo Switch, you'll know just how cheap feeling the Nintendo Switch dock is. So I'm not quite sure how much of a sacrifice that would be. And since it uses the USB-C port to charge anyway, I mean, it's just a pass-through for a HDMI, isn't it? So I mean, I don't really see how much of a cost-saving measure that would be. But yeah, I definitely think removable Joy-Cons and for the smaller screen and smaller build size would be a sacrifice that Nintendo would be likely to make. Personally, I don't think I'm in the market for this, but I think definitely there is a market for this. I mean, it's also very on brand for Nintendo. I mean, they've released like the Nintendo 3DS. And then released like the new Nintendo 3DS and the 3DS XL.
50 different DSs, man.
Yeah, it's very, very Nintendo to like release an iterative console unit like 2 years down the line. So I think it's probably these rumors, or I don't even know if they're rumors, they're more like reports at this point, that we'll see this by the end of 2019.
Personally, I don't feel like I would be in the market for that either. Partly because when I do play my Switch, even though I do play it in portable mode, I don't actually play it with the Joy-Cons attached to the screen because I find it a bit... I don't really like it. I find it to be too wide and it can be quite uncomfortable to play. So usually I'll either have it on the floor and both Joy-Cons in my hands, or I'll use the stand on the back to prop it up against something and then play it like that.
As long if they make any change, they have to make that kickstand better, because that kickstand is abhorrent. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it just comes off. I thought I broke it the
Yeah.
first day I bought it.
It's designed like that.
Yeah.
I did that as well. I did that. I'd really embarrassed myself at work. People were asking me at work when I took it, because I play it in the canteen on my breaks. They were asking like, "Oh, that's a big mobile phone." I'm like, "Well, it was a Nintendo Switch, but whatever." Yeah, and then I was showing them it, and then I put it down back on the desk too hard, and it like slammed backwards, and the kickstand like pinged across the canteen, and everyone just thought I'd broken it. I was like, "No, it snaps back in. I hope, because it slammed pretty hard, but whatever." Yeah. Yeah, as I say, both me and you own a Nintendo Switch, so I don't think we're definitely not in the market for like a smaller, cheaper one. I think the hardware would stay the same. I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, that'd be too much of a faff for developers to, optimize their games
terrible.
But can you imagine a Nintendo Switch offered at 200 quid? It'd be mental.
Exactly. That is very
just to get
important.
just to get people into the ecosystem, especially for parents with kids. Because if you think, I mean, Nintendo, the family is the target market of Nintendo is primarily families and younger children, and the prospect of buying a portable console for a child that's nearly 300 quid, I think, is quite daunting. Because if you think they're going to be like not throwing it around, but they're not. Kids aren't the most careful of creatures, are they? So I think buying a smaller, more portable console for 200 quid is a little bit more acceptable to parents. I think that might be another marketing route for that. So there is definitely a market for this. I think just a lot of people might be disappointed, maybe, because I think both me and you were kind of hoping for a more powerful Switch, like a revised version of the Switch. Although thinking about it, I'm happy with mine. Like, sure, it could output at 1440p, but whatever.
Something that I've always wondered about the Switch is if they could create. I don't know how they would do it. I don't know if it's just sort of mad hardware lockigami, but what if they released a new dock that was like Nvidia Shield?
How do you mean, like Nvidia's Shield? Like a streamy thing?
No, like actually, I don't remember what. I don't think it's Nvidia Shield. I think it's something else. It was like. Okay, I've got it. What if they released a new dock that was like an external GPU?
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. That like boosted the power.
So you could have a portable Nintendo Switch, and then you could plug your Switch into the dock, and it could run. It could have its internal hardware running a game, but it could also have back-end hardware, but perhaps more RAM, SLI. I'm not entirely sure how the hardware in the Switch works, because it's not exact. It doesn't work exactly.
Totally.
Go on.
It totally depends on what the power, or like which version of USB-C that they've put in. Because I know it uses USB-C, but in order for you to have like an external GPU, it has to run through Thunderbolt, which I'm not sure if that USB is equipped with. If they release like a more powerful Nintendo Switch, like a small revision, they do it and then don't tell you anyway, but like they change the model slightly for like ones that you buy 2 years down the line. They might add Thunderbolt into that, and then they could release a second dock that was like a more powerful upgrade. That'd make total sense for people wanting like 4K support. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
I think it'd be. I think that's an absolutely quality idea, because it would essentially give you two consoles in one. Right now, the dock is just a middleman to put your Switch onto a screen, or to charge it. But you don't even need it to charge it, because you can just charge it using the.
Yeah, that's what I do when I go like away for a weekend. I just take the charger. I don't bother with the dock.
Exactly. So I think my personal want for the Switch would be a new dock, not a new system itself, just a new dock that could operate as an external GPU, or not even just a GPU, because a GPU isn't all of the power needed in the system, but That's what I would like to see. I think that would be a
Yeah.
really smart move.
Yeah, I mean the only other like want that I'd like is maybe a longer battery life. But that being said, I haven't actually been on any train journey or like trip where the battery life has died on me.
I
That's probably just personal use case scenario.
I just
But
feel
I
like I'm
mean,
never in a situation where I'm not near a plug. Obviously, it differs from person to person, but I get
mm,
too like on the days where I'm out of the house the most, and I'm on 2 hours worth of bus journeys. The buses we have plugs that you can charge stuff with.
yeah, and I mean like portable chargers, like official Nintendo licensed portable chargers exist as well. So it's not like you can go. It's not like you go many places these days where you can't plug it in somewhere. Yeah, that's the only one from me. But yeah, while I'd love to see like a more powerful dock that would enable 4K support and like higher frame rates, that would also come with support, like specific support from developers to enable 4K. Like not all Xbox One games run at 4K on the Scorpio. On why am I calling it the Scorpio? The Xbox One X. Yeah, and it also depends on. I've got a funny feeling that I don't think that the USB-C port is Thunderbolt enabled on the current model of the Switch, which would be the killer for that theory.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be fantastic to see, absolutely. Other slightly, well, I'm going to call this neutral Switch news. Metroid Prime 4 development has been restarted from scratch. This news broke actually, like I think 15 minutes before we started recording the podcast last week, so I was a little bit annoyed to miss this out of last week's, but whatever. Nintendo released an update video on Metroid Prime 4 on their YouTube channel. If you watch it, it's the most heartfelt. I was like, yo, dudes, it's okay. Like, we feel like, they seem so apologetic.
Oh, that's Japan, Josh.
Yeah, I know.
It's just the kings of apologizing for things that they don't need to apologize for. Like, mate, it's fine. It's good that you're doing this.
Yeah, so this is the first update that they've released since the teaser trailer for Metroid Prime 4 at E3 2017. Nintendo said that they didn't feel like the development was up to their standards, and they are reassessing the development and starting again completely from scratch with the original development team, Retro Studios, which is based in the UK. They made the original Metro games, which, I mean, yeah, it's annoying that it's like delayed. You're gonna have to wait a few more years for your Metroid Prime fix. But I think as the great man Miyamoto once said, what is the quote now? I quoted this the other day and I can't remember what it is now. It's like
a rushed game is always bad.
A rushed game is forever bad. A delayed game is eventually good.
Precisely.
Something to that effect. So yeah, I mean, and also kudos to Nintendo for just being honest and holding that. I mean, this is probably like the best way that they could have handled it, I reckon. I don't think that they. I mean, if you think about other games like maybe Crackdown 3, what is another game that I think has had particularly troubled development. We don't know a lot about what's gone on behind the scenes, but I mean, Crackdown 3's been delayed. I think it must have been like 5 years worth of E3s now, something like that, 4 or 5 years.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is the best way that Nintendo are going to handle this.
I genuinely have reached the point where I feel like the franchises that I'm interested in have received so many delays over the years. Ones that I've been really excited for, Portal 2 received significant delays. Bioshock Infinite received very significant delays. And to the point where when the games actually released and I enjoyed them as much as I did, I'm just completely neutral and fine to any delayed news. If anything, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I would go as far to say that I like it. What I think would be the perfect scenario is for developers to stop announcing their games way too early. I think that's a genuine problem that we've been having. I think it's less of a problem recently, but certainly in the last few years, I think PlayStation's maybe the worst. PlayStation's definitely the worst for it. I mean, when we got the first teaser for The Last of Us 2, like 2 years ago, and I still don't think it's going to come out this year.
Well, you say that, and they teased Kingdom Hearts 3 in 2013.
Yeah, and it wasn't even called that then.
It
It
was.
was called it was called Kingdom Hearts 2.8, but the 2 was in Roman numerals and the 8 was a number.
I don't. I can't. I, th- I would like to say you're wrong, but I can't.
I'm not wrong.
But I can't because
I'm
God knows what's going on with those games.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about Kingdom Hearts a little bit later in
Yeah.
the release rundown. But yeah, I mean, I think it's again less of a problem recently. Well, actually, maybe not even recently. Again, I think PlayStation are horrendous for announcing games way too early, making us wait for them. You know, although to be fair, at least they don't say like, yeah, it's going to come out next year, and then say, oh, sorry guys, we actually meant next year, and delay it. I mean, they just haven't announced release dates, which is fair enough.
Remember when we praised Bethesda like 2 years ago for saying that all the games they showed at E3 came out the same year? I don't want them to do that anymore. I want them to come out at E3 and say they come out for 5 minutes and say, right, we've thrown the engine out. We've hired every single person who's working on the games. We've hired in new people, and you won't see a new Bethesda game for 5 years. Okay, goodbye. That would be ideal.
At least you know what's going on. Yeah, at least you know what's going on. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's like, fire the entire team or anything.
That's what
like
they need
that,
to do to Sonic Team.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with them saying like, this is what's. I mean, I think it worked very well for Fallout 4. I don't think it worked as well for Fallout 76. But yeah, no, I think announcing like Bethesda did really well that year that they announced, because what was it, like Dishonored, Death of the Outsider, Prey, and a bunch of other games that came out in like 2017 and everything. Wolfenstein, that was the other one, and they were all fantastic games. And I think they were all received incredibly well because we didn't have 24 months to pick apart marketing campaigns and, criticize things and then
complain about puddles.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think it's not really a problem, Metroid Prime 4 being delayed. I mean, we haven't even seen any gameplay of it yet. We saw a logo. That's all we saw. So, it's Nintendo are doing it right. Listen up, guys. Nintendo knows what's good. All right, and it's second last story. Metro Exodus is going to be Epic Store exclusive for 12 months. This comes after it was listed on Steam for pre-order, and people could pre-order it, and they have. And it's now going to be released on the Epic Store exclusively on the PC until at least February 15th, 2020. Steam pre-orders are still going to be honoured. Publisher, what's the publisher again?
I don't know for Metro.
I feel like it isn't. Right, watch it be THQ Nordic. I'm pretty sure.
I
It's
don't
THQ
think it will
Nordic,
be.
Actually,
I want to say
THQ.
2K.
Hang on, that's the wrong. No, it's not 2. Oh, actually, 2K might be a shout. No, it's THQ Nordic.
Oh, for God's sake, they own everything.
It's THQ Nordic. THQ Nordic, which owns Metro Exodus publisher Deep Silver. This comes from Eurogamer. They've shared their own statement regarding yesterday's controversial announcement that 4A Games' forthcoming first-person shooter is now a one-year timed exclusive on the Epic Store. In a post to Twitter, THQ Nordic said the decision to publish Metro Exodus as a timed Epic Store exclusive was made entirely on it's spelt Koch. Koch's media site, as Metro is their intellectual property. They are a sister company of THQ Nordic Vienna, which is the reason why we can and will not comment on this matter. We do not want to categorically exclude the possibility of timed exclusives for any of our games in the future, but speaking in the here and now, we definitely want to have the players choose the platform of their liking and make our portfolio available to as many outlets as possible. This brings up an interesting point, because we spoke a little, well, not on a podcast, but we talked a lot about last year about how Steam currently has the monopoly on certainly on the PC digital market storefront, and it's they've had the monopoly, and no one's really come along and given them competition. And Epic Store came out at the end of last year, around like the Game Awards, I think, so like very start of December, saying that they were turning the Epic launcher into the Epic Store. They've already had like free games released on there. Subnautica was free last month. There's something else free this month, I think, as well. And yeah, what else is exclusive on there? There was another big game, Tom Clancy's The Division 2. That's also going to be exclusive to Epic. So I mean, Epic are obviously putting their money in the right place. But was
Hades exclusive?
Yes, but that was announced as like an Epic because it's on Unreal Engine 4.
Okay.
So developers that develop in Unreal Engine 4 don't have to pay the royalty fees that you would usually have to pay to like use the engine. That's all included in like the cut that Epic take if you publish on the Epic Store, which is pretty great. And I mean, THQ Nordic hit the nail on the head there. I've seen a lot of arguments about this saying that it's really anti-consumer because you have to go between different launchers, and I can't get behind that argument. I think that this is absolutely it's very consumer friendly. It's just offering you more places to buy your games. And if it means that Steam is kicked into gear to actually innovate and do something with their Steam store and not have a total monopoly on the way that they take a ridiculous amount of money, especially from indie developers, I think this is great all around.
A monopoly is fine if the person in charge of the monopoly is doing people a good service, and I don't feel like Steam are.
I've seen we talked in our Discord actually. Someone posted like a graph of all the features that Steam has, like Steam trading cards and Steam badges and Steam profiles, and I think like the Epic Games launcher has a lot of what is important. I think it's still missing a few things like game activity and proper chat boxes that work. I think my personal favorite launcher has got to be Battle.net, to be honest, because everything's just unified and everything works between games, And I think if Epic Games get something like that going, then it'd be fantastic. But I mean, if you look at all the features that Steam has, like trading cards, I mean, yeah, it's a nice thing to have, but it's not the be all and end all of a game marketplace, is it? Really?
I mean, it's difficult to say because as easy as it is for me to say, I don't care at all. I don't care at all about that. Someone else might care about it more than me.
Yeah.
But I think there is a moral question here, and I do want to go out on a limb and say that this actually isn't very morally questionable. To say, I think it's basically guaranteed now that developers are going to earn more money if you buy their games through the Epic Store. Right?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact split, but it's
88%.
88%. So yeah, Epic only take 12%, whereas Steam will take 30%.
That's 88%, and there's also I don't know if it stacks, but I imagine it will. If you're using Unreal Engine, there's obviously that license free as well to publish on the store. Yeah. I think given the choice between wanting badges and achievements and all of these features that Steam has that are reasonably cool, and giving devs 18% more revenue, I think it's mad to not use the Epic Store. I think that's my personal take.
And I think a lot of PC gamers now are used to using multiple launchers. I mean, if you want to play any sort of EA game, you got to launch it on Origin. If you want to play any sort of Ubisoft game, yeah, you can buy it on Steam, but it will eventually launch through Uplay as well.
There's also an option on Steam to import games that aren't even in your Steam library or aren't available on Steam.
Even if you just want to use Steam as a launcher, you can just do that.
League of Legends has its own launcher. I can launch that game through Steam.
I think a lot of people that bought Witcher 3 on GOG also added it through Steam as well.
Yeah, I really don't understand this too many launchers problem. It's such a non-issue. To me personally, launchers do not take up a lot of space. It's inconvenient in a way, sure, but you'll already, if you're on PC, you'll already have a lot of launchers, and what's wrong with another one?
Yeah, I mean, it can sometimes be frustrating when you play a lot of games like in one session, and you end up having to go into your into your task manager tray and then closing them all because they're eating up resources in the background. Or I think automatic updates is the other issue that you gotta, if you want to update everything, you got to open up every single launcher. But apart from that, I mean, this is at the end of the day. I think again, the Epic Store is going to be something that evolves. So I think we'll have to wait and see for the rest of the year what other exclusive games will come to it. Because if we've already had The Division 2 and Metro Exodus guaranteed, I mean, they're already two of the biggest releases this year, guaranteed that there'll be more.
And that is some of the absolute, well, I wouldn't call them titans, but very big companies within gaming are feeling comfortable enough to make that decision. That's a big decision to make. And I think
Ubisoft and THQ Nordic are not... Yeah, so they're not playing dominoes here.
Yeah, if Ubisoft, I feel like Ubisoft in particular, them being the bigger company, are prepared to say this is exclusive to Epic Store, and they're just willing to go all in. I'm with you then, 100%.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, well, if Ubisoft see the potential, I mean, who am I to question? Yeah, and speaking of games developed by other studios, Bioware released the Anthem closed VIP demo for Anthem last weekend. It's running an open beta. No, what is it called? It's an open demo, isn't it? I've got to be right about this.
Oh, who knows, man? It's a demo. They've just called it a demo.
This is going to lead into the hot topic for this week, actually. That is the end of the news. Let's move on to the hot topic for this week. So BioWare has apologised for the rocky state that the VIP demo was in last week. If you read any of the headlines, you'll know that the demo launched and the servers were immediately overloaded. People were just stuck on loading screens for ages. They couldn't get in. I don't think it was fixed until the Saturday. So it took a good 24 hours for things to stabilize. And even then, I think things were still a bit rocky.
I think the worst element of it is during a stress test, which there's a lot of times where a developer will explicitly release something called a stress test, and people complain when it doesn't work. This is the point. The point was to break it. But the Anthem VIP demo and the demo that is currently live as of when we're recording this to the Sunday, these are not stress tests. These are specifically called demos.
Yeah, they're not labelled as stress tests, which what makes it even more egregious, I think, is the fact that the one last weekend was a VIP demo, one that you actually had to pay the privilege for to access. Which, I mean, is either intense scumminess on the side of EA or intense geniusness, or both combined in one, to charge players for the privilege of stress testing your game. It's rough. Because the hot topic this week, the question is, the hot topic to debate is the use of the words demo and beta, because I feel like both of these have kind of lost their meaning. Especially the word beta is a double-edged sword. If you call a pre-release version of your game a beta, on one side people are going to say, well, if they find bugs, it's a beta. It's not the final game. These could be fixed. The other side of that sword is that the beta is a lot of people view to be the final run of code before the final release of the game. So if people could also say, if these egregious bugs are in the beta, are they really going to be fixed by the time this game comes out? And also the word of the use of the word demo also annoys me a little bit, because I feel like especially from an era where we originate from, buying magazines and getting a demo disc in the magazine, where a demo was literally it was a marketing material. You got a small chunk of the game to play, and that would give you a taste of it, and then maybe incentivize you to go out and buy the real thing. And I feel like these two have kind of got switched in recent years. Would you say? Because I think I'm trying to think of a specific beta, but I feel like things like The Division, where they have open betas, they had that on the last year. There's an open beta coming up for the Division 2. Beta to me sounds like a stress test. but they're not anymore. They're absolutely marketing material, aren't they?
Well, that's 100% true, given I think there's definitely a lot of devs who will still say that a beta is a chance for them to get fan feedback, find out problems they haven't been able to find, and ultimately improve their game before release. There's still a lot of developers that do that. I would like to think that it's the majority, and that's fine. There are definitely studios who I feel like aren't even intentionally using the word beta wrong. They just don't understand what the word really means, or maybe it has just naturally lost its meaning.
I think also, again, relating back to something that we talked about last week, was the fact that general like punters don't really understand how video games are made. Like,
Yeah,
I'm, again, as I said last week, I'm reading Blood, Sweat and Pixels by Jason Schreier, and it's mad because you think when you see things like E3 demos, you imagine it as like, oh well, this must be where the entire game is up to in terms of its development, but it's absolutely not like that. Like, most E3 demos are like a section of code that they've taken and absolutely polished the shit out of, and that's not representative of where the rest of the game's at all. Same for like demos and betas. I mean, betas especially, because they have to be, QC, well, not QC'd, well, yeah, QC'd. They have to be QC'd, they have to be approved, like, even weeks before they roll out to public servers. So beta code is probably often maybe even a month or 2 months behind what it is at the time of when we're playing it, if that makes sense as well. Which also makes you wonder if, Anthem is releasing in 3 weeks? Anthem went gold. So the only changes that they can make with feedback from these demos is stuff that's going to be made available in a day one patch. So,
or the back end.
or the back end server stuff. Which if you want to talk about the server stuff as well, I get really frustrated when people get frustrated. I get frustrated when people get frustrated with the multiplayer video game launchers and
Exact
the servers
same.
crash.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, and they say like, oh, you should have planned for this. You should I think what a lot of people don't realize is that servers are like fucking magic. Obviously, I'm not a server engineer, but from what I've read of like technical engineers, like game developers on Twitter, especially over the last few days with the Anthem stuff, and from what I've read in material, is that it's not necessary. You can plan all you want for like server overloads or whatever. Something else is going to go wrong that like you just genuinely cannot plan for. So I really feel for developers like Bioware, and especially for like even DICE, like Battlefield, Call of Duty, I think as well had some issues with its like beta and overloading the servers at launch. And I get really frustrated when people are like, oh, this game's like, it's balked because the servers are overloaded at launch. Of course they're overloaded at launch. They've got 1 million people trying to log in at once. You can draw the line at where like the entire EA servers went offline, and which then meant people couldn't play Battlefield 5 or any other EA game. That was, I think I read something that the way that the code was like, the way they were trying to handle the server overload meant that they were actually effectively DDoSing their own system, because they were telling everyone, the code was telling everyone's Anthem game to just retry, which was effectively creating multiple like
It created multiple instances of each login.
Yeah,
so
they were DDoSing their own servers basically.
Yeah, so if your game retry, like it would try to get you in, fail, and then when you clicked retry, you weren't actually clicking retry. You were just creating a separate instance to try and log yourself in. So if you did that about 10 times, that would count as 10 different people trying to log you into the server.
And think of like a few 100,000 people all doing that at the same time. You're quickly going to run into some server issues there.
It's the kind of oversight that you just don't. That's an oversight that you hope doesn't set a bad precedent for the game's actual launch. Because that's a mistake you just don't want.
I think it's unfortunate as well that the reality of it is that is going to deter some people, because they just genuinely don't understand how video game development works and what goes on behind the scenes, which is unfortunate and something that I think can only be changed again through decent reporting and just general awareness.
It is
of how games are made.
It is also, while it might scare some developers, I feel like it is. I think, as we've mentioned sometimes before, it's very pie in the sky to expect gamers to act in a certain way, or to expect them to, like, to just kind of learn why things aren't going as well, because people are just going to complain regardless. You have to be able to damage control correctly, and many developers, as they've shown in recent years, are very poor at damage control. Not knowing how to deal with a problem, which I feel like could be very, very easily resolved. If you knew prior to, let's say, Anthem's launch, that there's going to be a huge amount of server problems, I feel like it would make more sense to say, hey, like make a Twitter post that says, we're very excited for players to start playing Anthem tomorrow. Please be aware that due to the high number of logins, you might experience server problems. We'll do our best to fix that. That's all you need to say. And a lot of the hate, I feel like, would go away because they've actually addressed that. But there's many times where that just doesn't happen.
I mean, they responded on Twitter, but I mean, yeah, I mean, what else can you do? I feel like I've been thinking about this a lot recently, but I feel gamers, gamer guys or gamer bros. Gaming definitely has this sort of toxic sort of aurora around it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of the opposite of what you have in the film industry, where if you're ignorant about how a film is made and you go and see a film, you'll, for the most part, I think, enjoy yourself and just sort of like not question about why you enjoy yourself.
If not, you'll enjoy yourself more.
Yeah,
in some circumstances.
Exactly. But then people who actually, learn about how films are made and are obviously like in the know about film techniques and film critiquing, they're much more critical, and they have a much more negative response to more aspects of films. I feel like that's the opposite of what we have in games, where if you're actually critical and have an understanding of how video games are put together, you're able to sort of appreciate them more. Whereas if you're ignorant about how games are made, it's very easy for you to be incredibly down on them, if you get what I mean.
Of course.
Yeah. And I think that's a stigma that needs to be flipped. To be honest, I think because people make games, and it's something that needs to be appreciated more.
Well, negativity where negativity is due is just as important as credit where credit is due. Whereas I feel like there's a lot of times where people are correctly angry about something, whether it be a microtransaction issue or a game just not being a functional finished product.
Are you thinking of the same one I am?
What, Fallout?
Fallout, yeah.
Yeah, just
see where you're going with this.
Yeah, just that makes sense. However, there's a lot of times where games, especially on Twitch, when I've been watching some gameplay of Anthem, obviously Twitch chat is just mental, and you shouldn't really think about it.
Pure toxicity,
I wouldn't call it pure toxicity, but there is a lot, especially in smaller, especially in larger communities. You'll see something like Anthem, and while I feel like the correct response for Anthem, if you don't like how it looks, is to say, I feel like the most mean thing you could say about it would be, this looks dull to me, or this doesn't look very interesting, or doesn't look very innovative. And I think that's fine. I can completely understand where people are coming from in that regard. However, so many players would say, this looks shit. Or this looks awful. This looks terrible. This looks boring. This looks like just really aggressive, unfounded comments on something that, if you have a concept of how games are made and you've played a lot of games in your life and you know what goes into them, you're like, you are wrong to say that. You might not like this game, but you cannot call it shit.
I think that a lot of that is mob mentality, especially on Twitch, because you are just a faceless human behind a keyboard when you're writing. You know, as most people, well, not most people, but people tend to be on the internet. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I think a lot of that also comes from maybe the younger, less mature audiences that like sites like Twitch attract. Or maybe the creators on Twitch attract, if you know what I mean.
Of course.
And again, it is sort of instilled in gaming's like almost DNA at this point that it has this sort of toxic roots or core that sort of seems to envelop every aspect of it in terms of discussion and critical. You know what I'm on. You know what I'm on about anyway.
Of course, yeah.
Let's get on to download discourse. Owen, what have you been playing this week?
Well, we mentioned the Epic Store earlier, and the free game that they released last month on the Epic Store was Subnautica, and I've been playing that. This is a game that actually really received a DLC 2 days ago, I believe, when we record this. It was the 28th of January, I think.
Yeah, it's in early access.
Yeah, so the actual game of Subnautica, I think, is fully out at this point. I have no idea why I've decided to play this game due to my quite significant fear of water.
Yeah, that's not really the game for you. If
yeah, I've
if
wanted
one of your phobias.
With a lot of horror games. Even though Subnautica isn't a horror game, it's more of a survival game. It has horror elements the more you go on. But as with a lot of horror games that I enjoy, I tend to only play horror games that I know are going to unsettle me. I don't want to play ones that I know are just going to be fine. So my favourite ones are ones that are genuinely going to have a fear effect on me that is going to affect gameplay. And
not just like cheap jump scares.
Exactly, yeah. So I feel like Subnautica is exactly that sort of thing for me. Because it's such a game about managing oxygen and being very isolated. It combines both agoraphobia and claustrophobia due to the fact that you're in this gigantic ocean with no real point of reference other than your main base, and the fact that a key element of exploration is diving into caverns and having to try and remember which way to get out. This would be fine if I could just disconnect my mind from the game and be able to say, you know what, who cares if I die here, I can just reload the save and try again. I got to the first point last night where I had been exploring a bit too far and my oxygen was pretty low and I was swimming towards the surface and I was getting pretty low. I knew I would make it, but I thought, I might lose some health here. Because that's usually what happens in games, isn't it? You have the breath bar, and then it goes down, and then it depletes your health bar.
Yeah.
In Subnautica, it did something that I didn't expect, and it really freaked me out, which is when you get to 0, the sound starts to go a bit, and your vision starts to blur.
Yeah.
That's really
interesting.
Didn't like that. I really did not enjoy that at all.
That's really interesting. It seems to be going much not. I don't want to say hardcore, but it seems to be leaning more towards that sort of that vein of survival where you genuinely have to think about. You can't game the systems.
No, you can't. There's no way. And it's the early game is forgiving in the sense that you're just exploring this relatively shallow seabed. And you have to keep an eye on oxygen, obviously, but it's very easy to get back to where you need to be. As the
Mhm.
game progresses, you have to get to like certain bases or life pods that have crashed to get information, to get new blueprints. The gameplay loop is extremely good, as is with many of survival games. Even looping back to things like Minecraft, you collect things, you bring them back, you make things, you do it again. That will never not be satisfying. But as you progress to find more things, the biomes that open up will be at different depths. So there's points in the game where you have to explore somewhere, and the option to just swim upwards to get your air back is not an option. You need to think about your oxygen. You need to do things at a certain speed, or that's it. And I had my first death last night due to swimming into this area, finding a pod that I had to get something from, swimming back, and because it's underwater and because you've got no points of reference, because you didn't walk in a direction, you swam in a direction, I didn't know where the cave entrance was, and I died from drowning. And it's
So what happens when you die? Do you like lose items?
you go back to a save.
Oh, okay, right, gotcha.
I'm
So it's not
playing
like
it.
Minecraft where it's like instanced.
Yeah, no, it's not like I thought a way that it might work was you'd have like clones of yourself and you could like go back.
Yeah, kind of like a roguelike, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, roguelite.
yeah, like a lot of survival games have that system where you carry your items about you, and then if you die, you have to go and get them back. Minecraft, Terraria, every early access survival game that's on Steam.
Yeah.
But this one is very much one and done, and I'm playing it in. I didn't want to play it on hardcore because I've heard that there are some quite cheap moments like later on. You can die very quickly to certain things. But I'm playing it on the second hardest difficulty, but I'm playing it as if I had one life.
Right, okay.
So I've kind of set the challenge to myself of I want to beat this game in one life, but if I do die, it's not. I can just keep playing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that seems like that seems like it is, because if you're too harsh with yourself, then I think ultimately that's going to affect your enjoyment of the game. So Subnautica's one that again I think I'm probably going to get to at some point. It's been out for, I mean, it must have been out for like over a year now, I think.
Yeah.
My brother is really, really into this. He keeps banging on about this. I don't know. Obviously, I've got it for free on the Epic Store. Do you know much about the VR version of this game? Because I have a Vive, and I kind of want to play it in VR.
That would
I think
sicken me.
I know,
But that's
I know
just me.
It wouldn't do you any good.
That would be super interesting if you wanted a super immersive experience with it. I'm assuming that it's a good VR port and experience. If it is, I would fully recommend that you do that, because if it is good, it'll be really good.
Awesome.
The game doesn't require any. It's very much a game about decisions and
Yeah.
being smart and just thinking things through. You don't need fast reactions. You don't need fast reactions. You don't need that much skill to play it. So I think it's perfect for a VR experience.
Awesome.
So if you could play it like that, play it like that.
Right. I'll have a look then, because I'm not sure how it'll work, because I've got it on the Epic Store, but my Vive runs through Steam, so I'll have to figure out how that works. Whatever. If worst case scenario, I'll have to pick it up on Steam. I'm not that fussed. It must be like, what, 15, 20 quid? Something like that?
Yeah.
I think it's gone up in price since it came out of early access, but anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that, and you've given it a good write-up, so looking forward to that. Anything else?
Not really. I think the only thing that I'm really going to be playing this week will be the Anthem demo.
Yeah, that's true.
We're going to play that after this, I think.
Yeah, I played it for about 15 minutes before, and Alt F4 because there was a lot of things that annoyed me. Everything from the UI. The UI annoyed me to begin with, and then I changed the graphics settings, and it wasn't updating, so the motion blur stayed on. And then couldn't get to grips with the flying controls on the mouse and keyboard, and then I was hitting load screens for no reason, and yeah, it was, I don't know. Don't take any of that. That's just my first 20 minutes. I'm sure everybody had that same experience, and I really want to give it a fair shot. So I think we'll talk more about that next week on the podcast, and we've actually given it a go this weekend.
Of course.
I think the only other game that I know a game that you've been playing this week that's on my list as well, and that's we touched Counter-Strike again recently.
Oh, of course, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we've been playing in sort of like 4 and 5 man squads on Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is like, I don't want to say it's a love-hate relationship game because I view it.
Yeah,
I don't even want to say that. I don't even want to say that I view it through rose-tinted sunglasses because the experience that I have now is still very much the same experience that I remember it being in 2015. 2015 was the year that I finished my GCSEs, and you finished your GCSEs as well. And it was, if you live in the UK, you'll know you get like a 12-week break after you finish your GCSEs. And we had that summer. I don't think it was particularly hot, but I remember that we played Counter-Strike pretty much solidly for about 12 weeks, and it was just the best time. And yeah, we've played about 4 hours of just some random matches, and it's the same experience that you had. Again, yeah, it is very much a love-hate relationship of you have those moments where it's like, how is this game designed? Why is this game designed the way it is? The spray patterns, like, why are you the way that you are? But I think when you have those good games, you have those good players, and you have the teamwork that just clicks. It's something that I don't think many other multiplayer games can deliver on. It's kind of like those matches are like diamonds in the rough where you have to go through all the really frustrating bullshit to just to get to them.
If a game is averagely, I guess the way that I think about it, in terms of my enjoyment of competitive games like Counter-Strike and Overwatch, things like that, is if you take a game. Now, bear with me here. If you take a game like Animal Crossing.
Okay, right, okay.
Take a game like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley. It's a very serene experience. There's no ups, there's no downs. You're sort of just going along a path that you're getting a decent amount of enjoyment from, a decent amount of, there's no real uptime or downtime to those games. You kind of just play it. And due to that, it's a relaxing experience. So the average is, I'm having fun with this. In a competitive game, you're either at cloud 9 or you're about to uninstall. But
I feel like this relates heavily to your experience. I don't think I've... Oh, sorry, I'll let you finish.
Yeah. It differs to other players, but every single player of a competitive game, unless you are a Buddhist, will experience tilt. And you will experience amazing moments as well. But when those two extremes come together, you get that same average, which is fun. So these games offer that same experience of, I know I deep down really, really like this game, but it's very 50-50 as to how your experience is going to be. That's my personal take.
I do somewhat. I think it depends on, one, the team that you've got, and also the team that you're against, and just generally how you're feeling on the night. I mean, we've played it two nights this week. The first night, I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it so much last night. I still had some decent fun, but I don't know. I wasn't playing well. I just could not get a feel for it. We ended up drawing that match that we had, but yeah, no, it was. I know what you mean. It is very 50-50. I still wouldn't say that it's like, I don't have rose-tinted glasses for it. It's not like a nostalgia thing. It's just something that I think that I'll probably keep coming back. It's something that I wouldn't really want to play week in, week out. I don't think I could do that. But
Absolutely
just to come
not.
back to it and have a couple matches a week, even even a couple matches a month, it's something that's just nice to dip back into and just sort of have a bit of fun with.
I think my main frustration with the game is a lot of competitive games give me that, as I mentioned before, a lot of competitive games have that same sort of thing of, I'm either really, really enjoying it or I'm pretty frustrated with it. when I'm frustrated with a game such as League of Legends or Overwatch, I know that it's fully because I'm not playing very well, or I might not have a very good team. They might not be communicating. I feel like the matchmaking is just mental, for that particular time. Whereas in Counter Strike, I feel like the main problem comes down to its gameplay. And I while I do like to constantly remind myself that these mechanics are refined and they're fair, there are a lot of times where you just think, how did that not hit someone?
Yeah,
Like,
it is.
how?
It's one of the only games I think that's really difficult to get a read on, like the telemetry of like where your bullets are going. And obviously, if you're a pro player, you'll think that I'm an absolute specimen that's not played it enough to understand it really. But I mean, yeah, it's one of those games that it's not for everyone. But I mean, we've played it enough that we're kind of familiar enough with its mechanics at this point that it's like, it's just something that's fun to dip in and out of. So, and we have a friendship group that pretty dedicated to it. So they carry us through games most of the time. Although we hold our own, we're all right.
Yeah, I think that's something that I'm pretty pleased with. Is if it's a good game for our friendship group in the sense that if you were to come and play League, you wouldn't feel like you were necessarily contributing to a match.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it's just such a hard thing to sort of understand and get into. Whereas in Counter Strike, while a certain player might have like 24 kills, the rest of the other four will all have like 15, 16. There's never a big gap.
Yeah, there's always like this, and then you got like assists, and you got the bomb to carry as well.
Exactly,
so it's like
yeah.
you never feel like you're. I mean, if you're playing horrendously, you might feel like a spare part, but it's I don't think we've had many games where we've felt like that. Maybe when we used to play against like LE and we used to queue up with them, but well, I've been enjoying it this week. That's all I can say. Is that it for your list of games?
Oh yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I've not really played much this week either. Nothing really too different. I still haven't finished Resi 2. I haven't gone back to it since last week. I will do eventually. I think I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. So of Leon's story anyway. I'll get back to that at some point. The main game that I've been playing this week is actually Dark Souls Remastered. I mentioned last week that I wanted to, tick it off that I'd finally completed a Dark Souls game, and I've made pretty good headway. The only issue that I'm having with it,
you've made the ultimate headway, I'd call it.
Well, yeah, I've completed. So before I defeated one of the Lords of, I want to say Lords of Cinder, but that's Dark Souls 3 in it.
It's just like Lords.
The Lords of Gwyn or something like that that you have to like defeat before you get to the final boss. I think I defeated one of them before I started playing again, and I can't for the life of it. So there's the Bed of Chaos, which I did this week. I did Nito this week. The one I've got left is the Four Kings. Who's the other one on the? Seath. Seath the Scalers. Yeah, I did him like last week. So yeah, I finally defeated Nito and the Bed of Chaos. I think the issue that I'm having at the minute is that I'm playing. I played it for about 8 hours this week, and each time I've played it for about a stint of about 4 hours, and it gets to the point after that amount of time that I start to hit a wall. Mainly because these areas in the last sort of like section of Dark Souls are just the worst. Like Lost Izalith, I think you mentioned that like developers have gone on record and said that it is just not finished.
No, it's not finished.
The Bed of Chaos was one of the most frustrating boss fights that I've ever had to do ever. It was literally like you were in Discord with me when I was playing it, and it was just me smacking my head against the wall for 2 hours trying to figure out how to get that done. Well, it wasn't a case of figuring out how to do it; it's just executing it. Nito took me a good podcast to get through it because I didn't have the right items. I didn't have like the right items for like lighting the way, and then it just depended on whether I got lucky on the boss fight or not. And yeah, the last area I'm in is like I've unflooded at the New Londo ruins, but I need to figure out where. And then there's them ghost things that you can't deal damage to unless you take like the items. So yeah, I'm in like the most annoying areas of the game, which is it's not. I don't want to say it's putting me off, but it's taking me to the end of my tether towards the end of my player sessions. And I think I'm getting to the end. I've got 2 more bosses to do, and then I'm done. And then I'm going to give Dark Souls a break for a bit. I was going to go on and do 3, but I also have Bloodborne to do, so I might go on and do Bloodborne after remastered. But in terms of single player games, that's it. And apart from that, I've just been playing my usual daily dose of Fortnite and Black Ops, and just going through the all the daily and weekly challenges. I hit rank 100 on the Battle Pass for Fortnite this week, which was with 2 weeks to spare, 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks left on the Battle Pass. So happy about that. Black Ops again, just grinding through my weapons, ranking up. I played Battlefield 5 for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes while I was waiting for Ethan to come online or something. Yeah, they brought out the new operation just yesterday, which actually, you know, the issue that I had with like the challenges being just arbitrary, that you'd eventually unlock them anyway, right? I thought that they'd fix them in this latest update with like the latest new Tides of War. I think one of the challenges is you have to get 10 headshots. You have to play Conquest. What's it called? Conquest Small? No, not Conquest Small.
It is Conquest
Squad
Small.
Conquest. Squad Conquest. You have to play Squad Conquest. You have to get 10 headshots in 1 life while assaulting an objective. Which to me, I was like, yeah, that seems pretty difficult, and maybe to the extreme of difficult. But at least it's something that you're not just going to unlock like automatically, like if you just keep playing. So I thought. Turns out it's not listed anywhere. I don't know if it's a bug or something, but if you just get if you get 60 headshots while assaulting objectives on Squad Conquest, it just unlocks it for you. It doesn't mention that you can do like.
I've seen something about this. Isn't it like either do this or this?
Yeah, so it's that or that, but I don't think it's listed. Like the 60 headshots isn't listed, but the 10 headshots is.
There was one in the first week of Lightning Strikes that I saw when Tag were playing it, which was get 5 headshot kills in 1 life. No, what was it? It was get 10 headshot kills while prone in a match, or get 10 headshot kills in a match.
That's I don't think that's part of the Tides of War. That'll be part of like a daily challenge. But yeah, that's also an issue with Battlefield 5 is that
it must just randomize them.
Yeah, I think it does. There's some assignments that say like it's like get 10,000 score with the assault class, or get 1,000 score with any class.
Yeah,
it's like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna unlock that one before you even get a chance to try the other. Yeah, it's whatever. That's just that's my Battlefield 5 whinge over, and that's all I've been playing. I mean, I've nearly finished Super Mario. What's it called? Super Mario Bros. U.
Who knows?
That's
Super Mario Lucky Garmy.
The one on Switch that came out last month. I've got to the last like stretch of the final world on that. Still really enjoying that. So, apart from that, that's all I've been playing this week because I've been busy. So that's the end of Download Discourse. Let's talk about some of the games that came out this week. This might be a bit of a short segment because we haven't actually played any of the ones that came out this week, so we'll just talk about them briefly. So the first one that came out this week was Kingdom Hearts 3, quite a big one. It's a game that I don't have any history with. I don't know about you.
I have never actually played a Kingdom Hearts game, but I was interested in them in my youth. Was never able to play them myself, but I've watched a decent amount of playthroughs of them, and due to a lot of streamers being interested in Kingdom Hearts 3 because they knew it was a big market to be able to stream, they've played like the entire series in the run-up to it, and I've been watching that just because that's what's been on. As I suppose it's a very difficult franchise. I can just stop there, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's
very difficult. Yeah, it's not. I feel like it's a very niche franchise in that it's one that if you got into it when they first started coming out, like as a child, like I feel like a lot of the audience for this isn't isn't the Disney audience of kids. A lot, I think the people that I've seen the most excited about this game are people in their 20s.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
people slightly older than us.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like the very tail end of the millennial generation.
Yeah, it's the first Kingdom Hearts game was in 2002.
So that makes sense.
Kingdom Hearts 2 was 2006. So it's been 13 years between KH2 and KH3. So people have been waiting a very long time for this one.
The only thing I've seen of Kingdom Hearts 3 is I've read some of the reviews. I know Jordan Ollerman did a great one for the Daily Star, and Vic Hood did a great one for Games Radar. Chris Schilling did a great one for Eurogamer as well. I recommend you go read those. So yeah, that apart from reading those and watching the GameSpot review by Timur Hussein, that's all I've seen. And I know that it reviewed decently well. I think it got, I can't remember the exact scores, but they described it as saying that it was a great Kingdom Hearts game with a story that maybe didn't pay off towards the end, and a story that is of course incredibly convoluted, as Kingdom Hearts games tend to be. But I think it's had the difficult job of wrapping up 2 mainline games plus like 6 side games.
Oh yeah, more than that. It's
something ridiculous. There was like a Chrome Flash game as is like apparently is essential to the canon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So I don't know. Whether I get to Kingdom Hearts 3, I think I'll probably play. I think me and you said we were going to play Kingdom Hearts 3 for the meme and do like an experiment and see sort of like what came of it.
That can't perfectly work, because now, as I mentioned before, a lot of streamers played it. I've seen a decent amount of the games, and I've watched YouTube videos on the storyline. And while I definitely don't know all of it, I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on it at this point.
What might be an idea then is for if we do like so you have some sort of general knowledge and I go in completely blind and have a zero clue.
That would be funny.
I think I think we might do that at some point if we get the chance. As soon as the price comes down, because I was looking for like it's only available on PS4 and Xbox One, and the cheapest I've seen it is $49.95.
Yeah.
Which doesn't quite fit my student uni budget currently. But,
I think the one thing we both know already is that the soundtrack is banging.
Yeah, I've got added like the main theme soundtrack for, I think, from like Kingdom Hearts 2 or something to my Spotify playlist.
There's Simple and Clean,
banging,
which is an absolute tune, and then there's Dearly Beloved as well, which is like one of the best composed tracks in a video game ever. I don't think you've heard that one yet, but
I don't think I have. You'll have to send me it afterwards.
Yeah,
but
it's absolutely incredible.
Clean, is it Clean and Simple? That's the
Simple
one.
and Clean, yeah.
Simple and Clean, yeah. It is up there with Wii Shop as one of the greatest video game tracks of all time. Yeah, I mean, we don't really have much to say about Kingdom Hearts 3 apart from that. The other game that released this week was Wargroove. This released, it's an indie, I think it's an indie title. Yeah, it's Chucklefish who published Stardew Valley on Switch. It's a tactic, like a. Do you know much about this game?
Yeah, basically Wargroove.
Go on, you take this one.
So have you heard of Harvest Moon before?
Yes, Harvest Moon's what Stardew Valley was influenced by.
So Stardew Valley is to Harvest Moon as Wargroove is to Advance Wars.
Advance Wars is the game I was looking to compare it to before I gave up and passed over to you.
So Advance Wars was essentially kicked off an entire genre of turn-based RPGs that, rather than being like Pokemon or Earthbound, instead had very large maps involving you controlling a lot of units at once. This would go on to be what the Fire Emblem games were based on. Essentially, you'd get two units to collide with each other. They would go into a combat, and then based on their various stats, that combat would resolve. Similar to how, if you've played a Civilization game, how combat works in that.
Yeah.
You click onto it, 2 units enter the same tile, they fight based on their stats, they lose a certain amount of health, and whatever happens, and they level up. Advanced Wars was basically the first game to do that, and it was extremely, extremely popular. I believe the first console it was released on was the Game Boy Advance, and
Sounds about right.
I think that's what it was on, and essentially had this huge following. I know a lot of people who I watch have cited Advanced Wars a lot and said that they really liked it in the past. And I think the same as something like Harvest Moon, it was a game people wanted more of, and what's the studio who made this again? Chucklefish have absolutely nailed that market of being able to say, here's Advanced Wars again, but it looks great. It's not obviously Advanced Wars again. It's not exactly the same at all. It's got a different art style, many improvements, but they've said, here's this game you used to love, but we've brought it up to date, and it should be basically how you remember it.
Yeah, I think I don't have any history with Advance Wars or anything like that. I think the closest I've got to that is like, do you ever play Lego Battles?
Vaguely remember that.
Lego Battles was a DS game that I used to adore, and that was like, it was kind of like a pseudo strategy game, not really in the same vein as Advance Wars as the way that you're describing it, but that's like my only sort of like strategy game childhood that I sort of had, and that kind of makes me hope that a game like that would, like a game like Wargroove would scratch that itch, especially on Switch as well, with it being portable.
I think you'd really like this game on Switch. It's nice.
I think I've heard that it's very user friendly for like people that aren't too into strategy games. Like I can play Civ, not well, and I can't enjoy it, but I feel like this would be something that I could get into. So I might pick it up. I don't know how much it is on Switch.
It's £16.
Oh, that's not too bad actually for a Switch game. The Nintendo tax isn't too great on that. I read the review. I think it was Chris Schilling again actually on Eurogamer said if you go into this expecting it to be exactly as Advance Wars was, you might be slightly disappointed. So temper your expectations a little bit if you have like history with the Advance Wars franchise. But yeah, I've heard that it's banging.
Yeah, but that's just fine for us because we don't have any history.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm probably going to give that a go this week. All right, yeah. So the only other game to have released this week is Sunless Skies, which is the sequel to Sunless Seas. Is it Sunless Sea?
Just Sunless Sea, yeah.
Sunless Sea, yeah. That Sunless Skies came out today on Steam. I don't know if it's out on consoles. I feel like, is Sunless Sea a game that you played, or am I just imagining things?
I genuinely have no real knowledge of this series of games. I've definitely heard of them, and I've got confused actually because I thought that this game was the Cthulhu game.
Yeah, it's got kind of similar artwork on Steam, I think, because it's the Sunless Sea is it's very murky green and very very much similar to that Cthulhu game.
It looks extremely interesting, though. Like from the screenshots I'm looking at.
I also don't have very much history with this. I watched Sam Greer's video review today while I was on my break at uni. Excuse me, and yeah, she seemed really really impressed with it. It's an RPG where you like create your captain. The basic premise is that Victorians expanded into space. And there's like a whole ecosystem. You take control of like a steam train rocket thing that you can,
it's like
you're a captain of that you like pilot through the skies.
It's like if what was the guy who did the railroad? And I should really know that because he was born about a mile away.
George Stephenson.
Yeah, if you don't know where me and Josh are from. George Stephenson was born here, who basically invented the train. And,
yeah, pretty much.
It's like the main ship in this is like if George Stephenson designed a rocket ship. It's really cool.
George Stephenson's first train was called the George Stephenson's rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you control like a steam rocket ship thing that goes around, and you have to like explore the skies, and I think you like trade with different like outposts and that sort of thing. I'm not actually entirely sure what the gameplay loop is. I think there's quests, but it's all like text based. There's no voice acting or anything. So yeah, if you're into sort of text-based RPGs with a bit of like, it might even be, I think it's survival as well, because I think you have to like manage fuel and stuff for your ship, kind of like Subnautica.
It looks like there's different interchangeable parts for your ship. You've got stuff that can run out. I'm just looking at a screenshot here. It seems similar to FTL in the sense that you can only move as far as your fuel can go.
Yeah. And then that sort of, that might be, make it like a little bit like a Metroidvania where you can only like sort of explore.
Yeah, possibly. That would actually make a lot of sense if that was the case.
Yeah. So I think I was going to buy it on Steam today, and then I looked at how many other games I have in my backlog to play. I was like, I'll leave that for a little bit. But yeah, if you're into sort of text-based RPGs with survival and maybe slight amount of Metroidvania, this might be your cup of tea. All right, let's get into our final segment of this week, which is Feels Good Man Clap. So this is where we highlight one wholesome thing to have come out of this week's news, because the world is full of shite and you need cheering up. So this week it's not particularly wholesome, but it's cool nonetheless. So if you know the studio Bethesda, who developed Skyrim, or the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, Oblivion, all that, Fallout, someone has in Wales carved a wooden dragon out of wood using like a chainsaw carving. Out of a massive log, and they've carved a big Skyrim dragon and placed it just off the A5 outside of a town called Bethesda, which is pretty cool. You can go there and have a look. If you do go and have a look, you'll be able, if you search for just Bethesda Dragon, you'll find it. The police, or the traffic police, have warned drivers not to slow down or stop on the side of the road, as it has already caused some minor accidents. I shouldn't be laughing at that, but yeah, just be careful.
Well, I mean, it's just minor accidents. It'll have been the most stupid, like...
Yeah, like people swerving out of the way or something. Well, that's what I hope, anyway.
I think it'll just be little bumps, to be honest.
Yeah, so, but it's if you look at... I've looked at the pictures, and it looks incredibly cool.
It's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I almost wish that it, like... I don't know if there's like a woodland walk around it or something where you can actually like officially park and then go for a look, which would be quite cool.
Yeah, you can walk there.
Yeah. Oh, well, that should be all right then. Go and have a look at that if you live near Bethesda in Wales, or just look at the photos online. It's pretty cool. And that's it for this week. Bit of a shorter one this week. Not by much, really, but, any shameless plugs, social media rundown? I should have actually mentioned last week that our intro music and, like, our jingle, it's the Mario Mushroom power up, but like remixed. That was remixed by one of our mates, Connor, who is currently doing like music tech at college. And if you want to go and have a look at his social media stuff that he's all doing to do with like his music tech, I'll link all of them down below. Down below, I don't know how, in the podcast metadata and all that sort of stuff in the links. It's Kern Music on, I think it's on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, possibly SoundCloud. I'm not quite sure, but the links will be down below. I'll stick them all down there. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm Josh Boyles, obviously, at JoshyBoyles2 on Twitter. Again, all of my socials will be down there. And Owen?
Yeah, I've only really got my Twitter to promote. I'm at Zanzibar Crumpet on Twitter. The same on Twitch as well. I mentioned that I was going to begin streaming last week. And now
you got your PC upgraded this week.
Yes, I upgraded my PC as of last Saturday. It's a lot more powerful than I expected, and it should be great for being able to stream all sorts of games. So yeah, I'm Zanzibar Crumpet on Twitch as well, and hopefully I get into it.
Yeah, your computer's all done now. You just need to move that CPU power cable to route through the top instead of through the bit. Owen was messaging. I was on the tram to go to my grandparents last Saturday, and I just got an absolute barrage of messages of Owen getting really frustrated at trying to build this computer.
If you go and build a computer, make sure you've got every single kind of screwdriver that's ever been created.
And a mum handy to unscrew things for you.
Fuck off. It was like it was the I definitely loosened them. That's what I'm maintaining. Spent 10 minutes trying to get these brackets off, and then my mum just comes in and just go boop. I'm like, how have you done that? I don't understand.
I shouldn't laugh, to be fair, because I know I've built enough. Like, my computer's gone through enough iterations over the years that, like, I remember when I first built it, I had my dad help me build it, and then every time I think I went through a stage of having like a water cooler at one point, and I had to get my granddad to like hold things in precarious locations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. But yeah, Owen's. To be fair, you've done a very good job. And once you got the all the basics sorted out, you were fine. It's just you sent me. You were asking me to review what your cable management was like, and if you know anything about PCs, the CPU power header, you route it round the back of the motherboard tray, and then you route it in from the top, so that only a little bit of the wire shows. But what Owen's done is he's routed it through the bottom of the PC case, gone up and around the GPU, and then
there's so much space though. It's not right. It's not right, but it's functional.
You've got a tempered glass panel that you can see it through.
It's a nice cable.
Okay, fair enough. Owen likes his tangled messes. Okay, what can we say? Yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you made it this far, if you want to listen, we are on Spotify. We're definitely on Spotify. I got that one sorted. iTunes, still working on. iTunes is a pain, so I'll figure that out for next week. Other than that, it's on YouTube. It premieres on Twitch, so you'll find it. You'll find it. Yeah, thanks very much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
See you later.
Thanks. Hang on, what was that? There was a sign off that I wanted to do. Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Oh.